was looking at your resume, and I'd love to hear more about the fellowship you had through the Eco Lodge.
Sure.
Yeah, just the biggest things that you took away from your time with them.
Yeah, for sure. So the fellowship and the internship were a little bit separate. They were run through two different organizations.
Mm-hmm.
So the fellowship is with a foundation that wants to train young leaders to go into nonprofit. So that was all about kind of having a career centered around social impact. And then we learned how to do grant writing and stuff like that. So there were some professional development days, and then you just spent the rest of the summer at your internship placement. So I was able to choose my placement, which was at Ecologic. It's an organization that works in Central America to restore and protect tropical ecosystems. But they work, sorry about my voice.
You're fine. I have that every day. Don't worry.
But they work really closely with indigenous communities mostly to restore the ecosystems. So the work is usually beneficial economically for them. So stuff like agricultural practices where it's better for the environment and it's better for the families. So I got to learn about what it's like to work for a transnational organization that's doing its work somewhere else. And then also kind of the communication involved there. We did the same thing today, but with the time zones, even something as simple as that, and trying to get on a call with someone. And yeah, so as far as challenges working for them, I think being like that disconnect between where the work is being done and where, I mean, the physical on the ground stuff, and then the management at the headquarters. That was tough because I was so passionate about the work that they're doing and so into the mission and everything, but then not being able to actually see it firsthand.
Yeah.
Was, I guess sometimes a little bit frustrating. It's like you're working so hard on something here and you don't get to meet the people. I mean, I did get to meet the regional president, I guess, the woman in charge down there. She came up, but besides that, you don't meet the people that you're talking to on the phone or the families that it's actually.
I'm sorry. Awesome. So yeah, I think that will help. I mean, it can seem really abstract in the beginning when you're fundraising for something that, you know, you have only been trained on and have like theory and stories behind, but you're right. It really does change everything when you're in country, and it all kind of like comes together in that way. And I think that's why we created the program, being spread out over 3-month periods of time. So I think that actually some of the challenges there might end up really benefiting you now if you do move into the Global Advocate program.
I've read a lot of other Global Advocate stories on the site, and they just seem amazing. I mean, I know the fundraising is hard, and that's something I'm a little bit nervous about, but just seeing what like all these mostly women have done.
Well, it is mostly women. Awesome.
Incredible. Yeah,
it really does come together, and it is meant to be kind of, you know, very challenging and rigorous, but also, you know, there's a point to all of that. So yeah, great. And so based off your experiences, and I think where you're at now, you're still in university. So what really drew you to wanting to do this program during your last semester of college, and then, you know, it potentially being your first like real in the field experience? What drew you to this program amongst all the others that are out there?
Sure. Well, there's I've been kind of looking at a few different fellowship, like middle of the road options. So I applied for a Fulbright, which I haven't heard back about yet, but that's a teaching opportunity. And I think a lot of these entry level, whatever fellowship programs are teaching, which I think is really important. And it's something that I want to try probably at some point. But I was drawn to this program because you guys are so impact oriented in the professional development, specifically for like social impact careers really drew me to it, because something like teaching, I think you would take some of that away on your own. But being specifically trained in it before and then having that foundation to move on after, just sounds like exactly what I need for what I want to do. So, I mean, just the whole process that you just talked about, the 3 months before and after, sound like really nice bookends to the experience, whereas a lot of other fellowships or volunteering or what have you kind of just drop you in. And I know you have like changing experience anywhere, but this just seems everything's, like you said, for a reason, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Quite the opposite of what you just mentioned. I actually did a teaching program first before I had any other experience, and then I did the Global Advocate program. And while it really prepared me, I think that having it been the other way around would have just prepared me for many other things in such a different way. So I think that's really great foresight that you're already looking at that and how it is such a professional stepping stone. So
where did you teach?
I taught in Thailand. Oh, awesome.
Happy to hear.
Yeah. And so then I think you're really hoping to gain from this program that you think will really just move you forward in your professional career, especially in the development sector.
Yeah. Well, the fundraising, it's a big one. I was working with the director of development at the organization I was at this summer and this fall. And I know that that's really tough, you know, soliciting donations. And although I'm interested in these more sustainable revenue sources, I also think it's an important skill to have, because you're not always going to be asking for money, but you know, when you're looking for partners, and you can't do it all on your own. So with any project, you're going to need to ask people for things. And that's something that I don't have a huge amount of experience with. So I think that's going to be important. And then just kind of working out the kinks and like the project implementation. I don't have some experience with that either. So that's something that's drawing me to the program as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I know fundraising it's a scary part that comes with the territory, but I think that you'll notice that you'll get so many different skills under fundraising that even if you don't continue doing it, it will really foster your growth within any organization.
Great.
So awesome. And then what skills do you think you already have that will benefit the Global Advocate program and whatever organization that you're placed with for your field work?
Sure. Well, first, I have this passion for social impact and making a positive change, specifically in Latin America. So I'm really excited about the New Guatemala projects and possibly being placed there. So just from my experience in Argentina, which is very far away, but shares a couple kind of social qualities of Guatemala, I'm really interested in seeing what's going on there and seeing how my gifts can be, or my strengths can be put to work in that context. Because I just see this crazy social inequality in Latin America, but specifically in Guatemala. I know it's at kind of the bottom of the development indicators list. So being able to make an impact in those communities, the same ones that I know a little bit about through my work with Ecologic, would be really cool. Yeah, I think the work that they're doing, they're conservation focused, but a little bit more on the development side those are the projects that I was always drawn to. You know, for instance, having honey making for the families, having that as an option. It's also good for the ecosystems because the bees are there. Like, I'm like, wow, that's awesome. You know, it's a win-win. How could you not want to be doing more stuff like that? So yeah, definitely being interested in Latin America, and then I'm fluent in Spanish. So I think that that's the best part of learning a language. I mean, you study it in school and you study and you study, and then you get to actually talk to people and learn about their lives. And I can't wait to do it again. And then another thing, I guess, would be like my communication skills. So I consider myself a very strong writer and communicator, and I'm very organized. So I'm good at, I definitely honed these skills in the office this summer, but I think that I'm very good at staying on top of tasks and staying on schedule and sending professional emails or reaching out to people. Like I'm good at that sort of thing. So for being kind of an ambassador for the organization in Guatemala, I think I'd be a really good person for that.
Yeah, great. And I think your communication, if you have taken on another language, has to be even stronger because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel about, I mean, I think you touched on this with Lauren just a little bit, but going off being really organized and on top of things, do you feel, because you still will be in school, right, during your training, if you are to become a global advocate, do you feel confident that you would be able to manage school, fundraising, curriculum, and then also, really hitting the ground running right after graduation? Do you feel like your organizational skills will help you with that?
Yeah, certainly.
Okay.
This is my last semester at BC, and I've overloaded half my semesters here because I wanted to get the most out of my experience. And I've always had a couple extracurricular things, but I've definitely gotten really good at time management. And although this is my last semester, I have a little bit easier academic schedule.
Okay.
So I think that I'll definitely have time for
Okay.
that.
Great. Because it can be, I think it's a challenging fellowship nonetheless. So in with school, and I wouldn't want you to miss out on your last last semester of college because you will be, I think, very busy. So I think if you go in knowing that, then that's already a great start.
Yeah.
And so you already kind of touched on this when you were talking about, different volunteer, experiences and being a fellow. What do you think, just from your assessment of the program, are the main differences between being a global advocate and just like a volunteer?
Sure. I think that global advocates are deeply invested in the communities that they work with. I think some of their volunteer programs are kind of like a once and done thing, where global advocates are, for the time frame, they're long-term invested somewhere. So they're not going to, pick up and leave if the work isn't done, or if they've started something that isn't sustainable. They're going to continue to work with the communities until something can remain there and, keep working in a good way. Additionally, I think that advocates are, that has to do with it, but like just invested. So they're not going to forget about it. So after the program, it's going to influence what they're doing afterward. And I think that's why I'm drawn to it too. Like I see this as a stepping stone to a placement at an organization that's doing similar work, etc. So while volunteering is something that people do in their spare time, or maybe volunteerism as a trip and an opportunity to see a different part of the world, I see this more as a professional opportunity for my career.
Absolutely. That's really great. And I think you're right. Like it is such an investment that it's really, the relationships and the work that you'll be doing really do last such a long time, maybe even for a lifetime, which is really great to be a part of. So I think that that's like one of the reasons this program was really developed. So you really hit the nail on that one. Nice work. And so I want you to think of a time, and this might go with some of your experience at Ecologic or even in school. I want you to think of a time where you thought you were really right about something and you felt really strong about that. And then it turns out that maybe the outcome proved that you were maybe not even wrong, but it could have gone a different way. I'd love to hear about that situation and then maybe how you handled it and what you learned from that.
Sure. I think this is on my resume. I helped started a group called Social Justice Coalition at Boston College. And it was born out of a course taught in the sociology department that's all about social change. And all these kids came out of the course, and our professor was encouraging us to do something. He's like, don't just learn and sit there and, you know, think about it from time to time. Like, why don't you guys start a group and do stuff? So we started this group, and we were like, wouldn't it be great if we had a coalition of all the, you know, social justice groups on our own campus? Like, they already exist, but they're kind of isolated. You know, why don't we build a web to connect them, and it'll amplify their impact, because then everyone will care about everyone else's issues. And it sounded really great. And we had all these planning meetings. You know, we're going to have town hall meetings and caucus meetings and, you know, all these different things. And we're like, yeah, this is great. You know, we're going to have, there are already people who are interested. So we're just going to, you know, direct their energy towards this thing. And while since then we've developed into something different, at first we had a really hard time. We were reaching out to people, and they're like, yeah, that's such a great idea. You know, you talk to your friend who's in this group, and like, yeah, that sounds awesome. I'd love to meet people who are interested in similar things. But what it came down to was no one has 2 extra hours in their week to go to another meeting. Like, all these kids are already overscheduled. And although you may be, I don't know, some other issue might be in your periphery, like, they care enough about this issue to kind of commit themselves to that group, that they don't care enough about it to make room in their schedule for another thing. So it became really frustrating, because you talk to people and they're like, yeah, we want to do it. But when it came down to actually doing something, it was, I guess, the difference between talking and walking the walk. Like, no one wanted to actually sit down in a meeting, even though the idea sounded great, you know, get everyone together. It wasn't happening. It wasn't until this semester that we had a meeting like that, and it's been like 2 years now.
Wow.
It actually came up kind of due to all these, like, all the racial tension, I mean, across the nation right now. We wanted to do something, and we did, like these other college campuses are doing. So through that, we learned a lesson, you know, that you can't just make people care about something that they don't care about, and that it's hard to get people on board with your thing if they already have something that they're committing their time and their energy to. So yeah, and then I think why we were successful this semester is because there was a more concrete cause that we could rally around, and we got the interested groups. And then other people saw it as a way for their groups to get ahead too. So for instance, we had like the Black Student Forum and all these like racial groups, but also a very vocal group on campus is Students for Sexual Health, because we're a Catholic school. So there's some issues with that. So like they came in and they're like, yeah, well, if we push the school to take a stance on these issues, like maybe they'll also take a stance on our issues. So it's sounding kind of political, without getting into too much detail. But I guess the point is that behind a very concrete cause, people can kind of come together and be like, yeah, we'll go to that event. But if we just have this, what seems like a great idea, but it's kind of lofty and nebulous, and that didn't work as well. So that's what we learned. We learned that it sounds great and people, you know, will commit to it in the abstract, but to get people to actually sit down and, you know, work out the difficult details of a project is that it's really difficult until you have something concrete. So.
Yeah. Do you think that will, I think about just like fundraising and, you know, it can be very abstract to people, the projects that advocates are, you know, assigned to, and you might get people that like, you know, promise one thing, but do you think you would still feel like good about sticking to it and like working through those tough situations and maybe not like forcing people to want to support what you do, but finding other ways to get them involved, because it sounds like you've already done that.
Yeah, well, I think the fundraising project is more concrete just because it is a real project.
That's
so
true.
Instead of getting people to just like come to a meeting about something that could happen, like it actually is something that's going to happen. So like I see a difference there. But it definitely is hard to rally people behind such a distant cause, which is what I learned at Ecologic with the fundraising, that an organization like that might be better off getting grants and things, because it's hard to get people in Massachusetts to care about people in Honduras. The right people will, and you just need to find those people. So.
No, that's really great. I like how you I already realized that like you really are doing a lot of storytelling and really getting people involved in a different way, rather than just asking them to like, show up and give some of their time when they don't really know exactly what it's for. So I'm also really impressed that you guys stuck with it for 2 years and we're still trying. That says a lot. So that's really great. Awesome. And so I guess I would love to hear more about, and this I think really comes through in your application, but just to hear like what really does inspire you and what are you most passionate about within, I think, this work and wanting to pursue it further.
Sure. I guess kind of my personal philosophy is that there's more good than bad in the world. So I'm attracted to people and causes that also believe in that. So I love how Mama Hope just, is committed to this positive, like, vision of potential and we're, working with that. So I forget your question.
No, you're actually doing great. Just what like inspires you most and what you're most passionate about within like wanting to pursue this work. And I think that's a really great start.
Okay, great. So kind of focusing on the positive and not the negative. So obviously with your Stop the Pity campaign, this summer when I was working in fundraising, it was difficult for me to kind of justify those more, I don't want to say like pathetic, but writing letters to people that are begging them for money and, kind of even my boss that I was working with was like, yeah, you have to put a picture of a kid on it, like people love kids. And that's definitely true. But when we have real employees in the field working with those people, and you're going to turn around and use their picture and like stick it on a letter to beg people for money, like I just had such a problem with that. And I know that the money needs to come from somewhere. But kind of exploiting the people in that way, I just took like such issue with it.
Yeah.
So finding an organization that kind of stands for the opposite of that, and really, I'm not saying that our organizations are the opposite. I do think that they're very invested in the communities and they work in partnerships, but from the fundraising side of things, they weren't against
right.
Using the kids. So I guess I'm really attracted to the positivity of the organization and the idea that there is all this amazing potential in these communities, and just changing people's idea of not only like the people, but also the work that's going on in developing countries is really attractive to me. I think that we were talking about volunteering before, but I've so many friends who have gone on week-long trips, and they have amazing connections with the people. But when they talk about the places that they went to, it's just like, oh, it's so sad there.
Yeah.
Like, the people are amazing, but it's so sad. And I'm just really inspired by like having the opportunity to change that and to change people's perceptions, because I know that's not how it is.
Yeah.
People are incredibly resilient, and I want that to be the image that people think of when they think of poor developing countries, and not like, oh, poor them, we should pity them. It's like, no, they're they have this amazing ability, just with the right resources and connections. It could be, a great place. It is a great place, but it can be even better. So
Yeah.
I'm inspired by just like the incredible amount of opportunity that we have.
Awesome.
And that's not only in other countries, but also here. I mean, you can always do better. So I think that, especially with like our generation, people are seeing that a little bit more. And like with this increasingly connected world, we're like, wow, like look at all we can do now. We have all these amazing tools and people, and I feel like it's really coming together. It's almost at like a tipping point.
Yeah, I think you hit it so well in your application too, when you said,
Yeah.
like, with your long-term goals, just to be a part of this work at such a pivotal time. And I think it's really wonderful that you do see that potential already, and that it can be done differently, and it's really incredible to have that critical eye, at such a young point in your career. And I think that that's just like really positive and powerful, and exactly why Mama Hope created this program, was for our generation who sees that it's been done maybe not in the best ways, and we might not have a perfect model, but we do see the potential, and that's what really matters. So that was really great to hear. Thank you.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I feel like people ask, like, why do you want to do that? Like, why do you care about those countries? And it's like, how could you focus on anything else? Like you said, it's pivotal time. Like, we have the resources to get everyone up to like a standard of living that's humane, basically. And how could you want to do anything else? Why would you want to go into advertising or like I respect everyone's choices, but it's just not for me. Like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, great. Well, this is I'm ready whenever you are.
Okay. I'm going to put you back. Great. Hi, Katie. It's so good to see you again.
Hi, nice to see you too.
Since I saw you last, I've started working as a global advocate as part of a fellowship program with an organization called Mama Hope. At Mama Hope, we are working to disrupt the development industry in Eastern Africa and now in Guatemala. Next May, I'll go to Panahacho, Guatemala to work with this incredible organization called Starfish. Starfish works with girls and young women from indigenous backgrounds that often lack socioeconomic opportunity. Through holistic education, the girls learn job training and physical and emotional health skills. After graduating at age 25, the young women are encouraged to start their own businesses. A lot of the girls want to start social businesses. For example, I heard about one who is selling sanitary pads in her community and teaching women about menstrual health. So these are some of the amazing things that are being started by this organization. Although these girls have the skills and the knowledge to start a business, they often lack financial resources. That's why I'm going to work to establish a seed funding program so the girls can have the same opportunity that we have when we graduate school here. Will you join me in giving them that chance?
Yeah, absolutely. Nice work. You've definitely done your research. That was really well done.
I think Lauren was telling me about that last week.
Yeah. Well, you did a great job. The way you organize that is like really great. So nice work. How did that feel doing that?
Good. Got me excited.
Oh, good. Good. Usually people are really nervous. So I'm glad you were excited and not too nervous. So that was really well done.
The worst they can say is no.
That's true. Awesome. Cool. And so I guess moving into more talk about fundraising.
Yeah.
Who do you think would be the first 3 people you would try to rally for support?
That's tough. I'm looking forward to the boot camp. But one of my friends was doing a fundraising campaign for his organization at the end of this year. It's kind of an end of year thing. And so I was just seeing him go through that. And it's kind of difficult because there are certain people who you feel like you shouldn't be asking for money, like your family or I don't know. But I guess, again, the worst they can say is no. And as long as you do it in a respectful way and you're just telling them what you're up to and what you're working on, that, no harm can come from that. So I guess the first people I would get on board would be my family, because they have a lot of contacts that they can then tell about it as well. So after that, probably like my mentors at school who I'll go see in the spring semester. So maybe my professor from my social entrepreneurship class, she'd be really excited to hear that I'm doing this. So,
yeah.
I mean, she already knows about Mama Hope through Hannah. Hannah came into our class
Awesome.
in the fall, but I'd be excited to tell her about that. And she's working to establish an entrepreneurship center actually at Boston College.
Oh, wow.
I guess it's just open, but they're, getting established and getting speaking things. So maybe she would even be able to get it out in a publication or something
absolutely.
about the program, but sneakily about my fundraising campaign.
Yeah.
And then I would probably, this is where I'm unsure, but I would probably send it to the organization that I was interning for, because those people are already invested in the area. They care. There's a reason that they're working for an organization that works in Guatemala. So especially since there's not like overlap, they're not competing organizations.
Right, of course.
Working with young girls, and it has nothing to do with conservation. So maybe if that's, and there are a lot of women at that organization and nonprofit generally, but maybe that's something that they care about and something that they would want to contribute to too.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think the diversification of everyone you mentioned is really great. And I think you could really do a lot on campus if you really utilized your resources there. And it sounds like starting with a social entrepreneur professor is a really great place to start. So yeah, awesome. And it shows you have a good relationship with the last organization if you can, keep them in touch with what you're doing. That says a lot as well. Awesome. And yeah, so I mean, I know you mentioned this in the interview and as well as on your application, but I would love to hear just like your main concerns about the fundraising and any concerns you really have about the fellowship in general, aside from fundraising.
Sure. I mean, I guess the big thing with fundraising is like, I know I have this network, but I've never really, I guess, activated it before.
Yeah.
So what if I reach out to everyone and I still don't have like nearly enough money, I guess, is the main thing. And then I know you can do events and stuff. I think I might have even talked about that in my application, but
right.
I know that I can do this. I just don't have much experience with it. So I guess I'm just doubting a little bit, like, how much money can I actually raise? It sounds like a lot.
Yeah. No, that's a really valid concern. And I think a lot of our advocates don't have fundraising experience, or they have only fundraised, a small amount of money, or just like, I did a volunteer program in Honduras, but it was just to like pay for my trip, so when you're actually doing something that does have an outcome and an impact, it makes it a lot easier. So
yeah, you're not just paying for my plane ticket.
Exactly. And so, and we do really provide the training for you to leverage all networks and to leverage new networks. So yeah, that's a great concern though. I think that's probably usually across the board with all potential advocates. So
yeah, I hope to be pleasantly surprised. But
yeah. And I think that's one of the greatest things about the program too, is like a lot of times people who you least expect will actually be the ones who end up supporting you. And that's really incredible. And it's a really great feeling. So yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Are there any, other questions or concerns you have?
I would like to hear what some other advocates have gone on to do, like specifically. Like it kind of, the website talks a little bit about that last step. There's a kind of like a capstone program where you review what you've learned, and there's so like what actually, I know I saw I think I was on Kula's website. I don't know. I
Yeah.
saw a couple organizations have been founded, which is awesome. But like right now, that doesn't seem like something I would be doing in 9 months, which is crazy. But who
Right.
knows? So
Yeah, Sarah specifically was an executive advocate. So Kula was already founded. So she was trained directly under Nyla, the founder of Mama Hope. However, the last year Sarah's had like Kula's growing to be just like massive because Sarah's just really unlocked, I think, you know, her own potential and seeing what she can really do as an executive director in the US, and you know, fostering awareness for the people from the coffee cooperatives in Rwanda. Yeah, she's done really incredible work. I actually visited there this summer. But specifically, one that really comes to mind when you ask that for me is our former advocate, Ashley. She lives in Australia, in Melbourne. She did the program directly after graduation. Actually, she came to boot camp, flew back to Australia, gave her valedictorian speech, and then graduated. So she really would be, you know, you would be in the same boat, I think, pretty much. Ashley, after the program, she now is the fundraising and impact manager at Engineers Without Borders in Melbourne. The job description asked for 10 to 15 years of experience, and Ashley was given that job. And Ash is kind of like not a human creature, but she really just used the program and was really like, you know, you're getting really caught up on my age when I have all of these skills and I'm really excited and enthusiastic. And so she really just made them kind of like see that her age was not a disadvantage, but actually an advantage. And she used a lot from her curriculum, using like human-centered design, which advocates learn a lot about during the 3 months of training. And she's now been teaching that at Engineers Without Borders, and she's currently with them in Cambodia teaching that toolkit to different communities throughout Cambodia. So Ash has been with them now for almost a year, and she's just doing really incredible things. So she's one advocate who's just really been a great success story for us because she was so young and truly the kind of, you know, applicant that we really look for. Another one would be an advocate who was in the first class. She went to St. Timothy's School. She had worked with the UN and is a translator, but now she's working with UNICEF in Cambodia doing storytelling and blogging for people who were affected by the tension and the civil war in Cambodia, or the genocide. So she's been there for about 2 years now, and I think she has about a year left on that contract. A lot of applicants go on to grad school, our younger ones anyways. We have one at Berkeley, Tulane. I'm at USF, so quite a bit of our advocates do that. Other than that, we've had some pursue completely different careers, but still kind of using the skills they learned from the program. Some work at Google. We have one at the Harvard Business School. She's now the program director there. Another advocate from the first class actually did start her own organization. It's called Mama Maji. She did water projects in Kisumu, Kenya with our first partners at OLPS. And so she's still there expanding from the project that she did, doing really, really well. They're based in New Orleans, and they have been, you know, moving through different communities now in Kisumu, which is really incredible. I'm trying to think of some other good ones. We have one advocate who was a nurse before, and she went to Kenya as well. She went back to her home in Baltimore, and now through the University of Maryland, she was hired through the Ministry of Health in Rwanda to teach nursing to rising nurses in the country. So those are just a few, I think, of, you know, some really great stories. But I think most of our advocates are really, they've stayed within the sector. If not, they're still doing like equally great things. The third phase definitely is kind of really up to the advocate, and we kind of created like that. The first one is really, really structured, and that's the main training, and then you have the hands-on experience. And then the third phase is really just taking the skills you've learned and really applying them to your life and where you want it to take you. So there are definitely the requirements, which is the capstone, which can be really anything you want that you think will add value to your resume, but also still benefiting our partners in the community that you were placed with. Some have thrown in other larger events. Some have had work published. A lot of grant writing and like larger grants for the community-based organizations. That seems to be one of the most effective ways to use it. Others have created toolkits. It's really just kind of up to you and the need that you still see within the project that you were assigned to. You still have to do impact and evaluation and write a final project report that's pretty detailed and does take some time, but it really is a culmination of everything that you've done. And then as far as professional development in that sense, we help you write resumes, definitely help you network and find other like-minded organizations. Also, our alumni group now is quite big. We've had, over 50 advocates at this point who are working in some really great positions. And so there's a Facebook job board that we all post on that keeps growing and growing. And we are essentially kind of a family. So everyone really does look out for each other and for their success after the program. So, but the third phase is a lot of how you want to make it. And then the mentoring is also really important to us and something that we really, really value. And we do expect those returning advocates to really help prepare the next advocate for their next 9 months in the program as well. So.
Is there like a strict pairing there?
Yeah, I mean, we do try and keep it within the same project. Yeah, that makes it really important because there aren't as many gaps in it. So, but it is really beneficial. I know it helps to have another soundboard aside from the Mama Hope staff when you are fundraising and doing project management training. That seems to be really helpful. And someone who is just there can really empathize with, the growth you're going through, which is really important. So, yeah.
Cool. I loved what you said earlier about Ashley's age as an advantage, kind of coming in with fresh ideas instead of having to unlearn something. And yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, I did her
inspiring stories.
I did like a Skype interview as her to recommend her, and they were just like, couldn't believe her. They were like, she's trying to like make us think that like this gap in her experience is a really good thing. And I was like, I think it is actually. Like, this is a really innovative model she's been a part of, and she's done really, really well with them. So I think you can also, think about that no matter what you do in the next few years as well. So, yeah.
And then just specifically when and where the boot camp will take place in January.
Yeah, so the boot camp will be in San Francisco. We're excited we haven't been back in the Bay for the last 2 boot camps, and we're really excited because it's class 10 and it's a really big milestone for us. So we want to be at home for it. So yeah, it will be at the end of January. It starts January 28th and it will go to February 2nd. So it's Thursday to Monday.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Would that be an issue for you to make it out there?
No.
Okay.
I don't believe so. I was just, funny enough, I was looking at, do you know GRI? Global Reporting Initiative. So it's like it's about measuring impact. It's this set of standards that organizations use. Yes. And there's a workshop for that in Boston, but I think it's the weekend before. So
I have heard of that. That's great. Awesome. Nice thing skill thing to.
Yeah, that was through the new Entrepreneurship Center at BC.
Wonderful. Yeah. Awesome. That will be really great. Yeah. Cool.
I think that concludes my questions, but if you have time, I'd love to hear a little bit about your experience because you started as an advocate.
I did start as an advocate. Yeah. So I was in class 2 and I applied and left Thailand like immediately after I was accepted, which was really hard. It was after being there for 3 years, but I applied basically because I was teaching at a really wealthy school in a slum in Thailand, outside of Bangkok. But there was such a disconnect between the resources my school had and then the actual resources that were distributed amongst the community. And so I really saw, just seeing an abundance of resources and then such scarcity just really put me off. And so I really wanted to find something that really found a way to, distribute things equally. And so I applied to the program, seeing that Mama Hope really does keep in mind communities. They diversify funding and really just leave it up to communities to identify issues and projects. And that really stuck with me. So I went to St. Timothy's School. I helped support a solar-powered computer lab and an additional classroom. But one thing at St. Timothy's that has really just kept my interest in international education and development is their unique tuition policy. So for every 2 paying students, 1 vulnerable child from the community gets to go for free. And that to me is just extremely innovative and something that can really be, I think, implemented throughout the world and even in the United States. And so it's really just that idea that, education is a very basic human right. And it's one thing to have education, but to have a high quality of education accessible to anyone, to me, is just really powerful. And so, for Mama Hope to partner with such an incredible community-based organization like St. Timothy's just really spoke so many words for me. So so from the program, I went into human rights education. I'm doing my master's in that. And that my work with St. Timothy's really, and Mama Hope really influenced that and where I'm at with, we're using education in the development sector. And so, and then I was hired through Mama Hope, which was great and an added bonus. But so that, to me, it was just, I got a lot of skills from the program that I didn't have before. And I had so much international experience at the time of my advocate program, but I really lacked the fundraising skills and the project management skills. And that was something that just from the start of boot camp to the very end, I just felt like I had worked 10 different jobs in 9 months. And that, and it was really, really challenging, but I have yet to the work is really challenging still, but I think just how much you are challenged in such a short amount of time and the trust you're given to really work so closely with wonderful, well-established organizations is really huge. And I think it really does just it really prepares you for so many different situations. Personally, I developed a lot as well. I think just confidence and organization and communication, like you said earlier, and just empathy and trust was really incredible for me. So the program it's very dear to my heart because it really did a lot for, I think, where I'm at right now in my life. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, of course. And so I know that you're really attracted to the Starfish Project, which is great. We're really excited to be working with them, but I know that they're probably going to want to do a short interview with you as well. Once we've passed everything along to them and the rest of the Mama Hope staff sees that. So I hope you're open to doing that.
Totally.
I know that you do have an incredible background in Spanish. And I know Lauren told you that you have to be almost fully fluent to work with Starfish. And so I noticed on your transcripts that you did all of your classes in Argentina in Spanish, which is great. Do you feel like you have a good grasp on the language that would be used within an organization, on budgets and workshops and?
No, but I can certainly study.
Awesome. Okay. And do you think you'd be able to do that with school and fundraising? Okay. Yeah. Great. And we'll try and we would obviously give you the resources to do that.
Yeah. And my boss at Ecologic is from Panama. So she's kind of my Spanish mentor. She'd be willing to help me with that too. Yeah.
Awesome. That's really great. Yeah. So we will get you connected with everyone at Starfish and then hopefully have an answer for you within the next week to week and a half. So thank you for your flexibility today.